You're welcome to Legal Clues on Emirate Radio. And as you know, on Legal Clues, we bring you legal tips that will help you to make informed decisions, that will help you to be aware about some of your rights and obligations as citizens of the country, and that will help you, of course, to live a crime-free life. On Legal Clues, we try to give you some tips to be abreast of so many things you should be aware of to help you in life. Of course, you can know everything as regards law here on this program, but this program will help you bring you a bit closer to what you should know about you and your laws. You're welcome to this program, and on today's episode, we'll be talking about child adoption in Nigeria. My name is Damilola Obadimeji, your host on this program. So as I said earlier, we'll be talking about child adoption in Nigeria. There's need for adoption for some people if we understand for a fact that it's not everybody that will have children in life. I think it will help us to accept some things we call faith. We have some couples that have been looking up to God for fruit of the womb for a while, and it seems as if it's not coming forth. We are not God. God would definitely do it if He will, but in the meantime, you can check through that process of adoption. Gone are the days and the era where people think adoption is something that we cannot do. You know, a lot of societal pressure, cultural beliefs that come against adoption. But this is this 21st century. Of course, adoption should be something that you can consider. And it's not even for only people who cannot conceive. We have people who want to give back to humanity. So adoption is something that is honorable, by which you can give back to the society, to humanity. We have a lot of people that have children, and of course their children are old and gone to various places in life. They tend to adopt children, some other children or a child that they can take care of and like their own. So adoption is a thing that we should not discourage. We should not discourage people about it. Instead, we should encourage people to explore adoption process. So what is adoption? I'm sure a lot of people will know what adoption means. For the purpose of people who are not so sure about what adoption is. Adoption is a process by which another person or other people assumes parental responsibility of a child as against the biological parents. It means a process by which the biological parenthood for couples would otherwise be who are unable to have children. Biological children, their rights and obligations towards a particular child is absorbed, and another person or other people assumes that responsibility. In adoption, is different from guardianship. A lot of people will mistake this too. In guardianship, the rights and obligation of the biological children and parents is not totally removed. But in adoption, it is totally removed. Their rights and obligation towards that child is removed completely, while the adoptive parents now assumes that responsibility. As a matter of fact, the child tends to take their name, the name of the adoptive parent now, dropping that of the biological parent, and that is the concept of adoption. It makes that child as though is the biological child of the adoptive parent. That is adoption. So adoption puts the parental responsibilities on another person or other people as against the biological parent. Adoption is not well defined in Child Rights Act, which is the main law that governs this. But from legal definition around, we can tend to bring out this as the definition for adoption. So the meaning of adoption is simple. Process whereby the biological parents, their rights and obligation on that child is absorbed, is removed, and another person or another people take it up. That is the meaning of adoption. So adoption is not something, like I said earlier, that we should criticize. Instead, we should encourage it because it's an honorable thing. So there are many things we should know about adoption. For example, adoption ranges from state to state. from state to state. The adopting process in state A might be slightly different from state B because they have the right to make laws to govern their own process as they deem fit. But I'm going to be focusing on that of Kwara State. We are in Kwara State, so adoption process in Kwara State. Before you go into the process or the procedure for per se, we need to know that there are some requirements that must be present before you can even think of having a child in Nigeria, to adopt a child in Kwara State or in Nigeria as a whole. Now, who can adopt a child? Who can adopt a child in Nigeria? In Nigeria, both single individuals must be married couples that may adopt a child. If you're a couple, you can adopt a child. And of course, single persons too can adopt a child, but you cannot adopt a child of the opposite sex as a single individual. I'm a woman now. If assuming I was single, I can adopt a child, but I can only adopt a female child. And likewise, a man that wants to adopt can only adopt a male child. You cannot, as a single person, adopt a child of the opposite sex in Nigeria. So you should know for a fact that as a couple, you can adopt a child, any sex at all. But as single individuals, you can only adopt a child of your own sex. Now, there's also what we call the age requirement. The Child Rights Act states that the applicant must not be less than 25 years of age. If you want to adopt a child, you cannot be less than 25 years of age before you can adopt a child. If you are 24 downward, that means you cannot adopt a child. But if you're from 25 years and above, you can. You have met the age requirement within which you can adopt a child. And of course, it also provides that you must be at least 21 years older than the child you want to adopt. So if you want to adopt a child, you must be 21 years older than that child, and you must have attained the age of at least 25 years of age. So that is the age requirements for adoption. And the marital status and gender is what I've talked about. If the applicant is unmarried, you must show evidence that you have attained that age of 25 years. And of course, you must be the same sex with the child that you want to adopt. There's also another requirement, financial requirement. You must be able to prove that you can take care of the child. You must meet the financial capability and the means to take care of the child that you want to adopt. You don't want to adopt a child and make the child suffer. If you know you are not capable of taking care of a child, why try to adopt at all? So you must prove that you have the means to take care of the child. And also residency. You have to be resident here in the country before you can think of adopting a child. Of course, we have other people that adopt children and probably take out of the country. There's also what we call family adoption, where probably an uncle, an aunt adopts children or child of their family members. That is also accepted or acceptable in law. If I'm an aunt now and I want to adopt my niece, it's possible under the law, provided that the biological parent consent to it. So that is what we have talked about. Who can adopt in Nigeria? You must be married, and you may be married to adopt any child at all. But if you're single and you're not married, you can only adopt a child of your own sex. Of course, you must have attained 25 years of age, and you must be at least 21 years older than the child that you want to adopt. Now, who may be adopted? It is only a juvenile that can be adopted. However, the term juvenile has no uniform definition for the purpose of age of responsibility and accountability. We can say any child below the age of 18 years. Of course, from 14 years, the child has become a young adult. So a juvenile generally is the person or the child that you can adopt. But of course, there's no uniform definition for juvenile. But it might be safe to say that any child that is not yet an adult can be adopted. Now, in the process of adopting, there are so many things that you have to go through. It's not just a one day journey and you just say, oh, I'm adopting this child and that is it. It goes through a series of things ranging from the Ministry of Social Development to court to so many things involved. And so we want you to be aware. But we'll be right back. We want to go on a short break, relax it back, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Legal Clues on Emirate Radio. For the purpose of people just joining us, we are talking about child adoption in Nigeria, the procedures for it, the laws governing it, who may be adopted, who may adopt, and the likes of it, things you need to know about adoption. We have said earlier that adoption is an honorable thing. It is something that should be encouraged and not discouraged, knowing full well that it's not everybody that is predestined to have children, biological children in life. And also, it's not even only for people who don't have kids of their own. People who have children also adopt is a way or a form of giving back to humanity. So now I want to talk about some laws guiding adoption and the procedure for adoption. I've said it earlier that adoption processes and procedure may slightly vary from state to state because different states have so many adoption laws regulating it. So it's not usually a uniform law. Some states' laws may differ from another. So sometimes the procedures vary. Now we have the major law guiding adoption in Nigeria is the Child Rights Act. Child Rights Act talks about different rights that a child has, and we also have different state adoption laws. Adoption laws of Kwara State might vary from adoption laws of Lagos State, and that's how it is. We also have regulatory agencies governing it. We have ministries governing it, and also presidents governing it. So we can talk about the laws to involve Child Rights Act, different adoptions laws of different states, regulatory agencies, judicial precedents. Now, the adoption processes in full. Before you can wake up and say, yes, I've fully adopted this child, there are requirements, there are procedures that you must follow. The first one is the pre-approval from State Welfare Agency, then to go to court application, then to investigation by the State Welfare Agency, then the recommendation by welfare officer, until then to court order, to final documentation, and to post-adoption follow-up. Now we'll take it one by one. Pre-approval by the State Welfare Agency. Here in Kwara State, the Ministry of Social Development, is the one guiding this adoption process, whereby we have welfare officers that will look into your application first. The first stage is you file an application about your intention to adopt a child. And of course, they must look into the application. They will invite you for interview. We call it interview. To talk about some things, they'll ask some questions, pose some questions to you to know if of a truth they find you worthy to be able to adopt that child. So it's a process. You apply to them. They'll file the application. You file the application. They will interview you to check if of a truth you can adopt this child. And of course, that ministry has no right to grant that adoption order. They only have the right to make recommendations to court. So after they have discovered that, okay, you passed this interview, you're doing well, you can adopt this child based on their own observation, the next thing to be done is to apply to court. The application will be channeled to court. And here in Kwara State, is a family court, that usually adjudicate over this adoption process. So a court of competent jurisdiction of any state will be applied to. You apply to court. Sometimes the ministry are the ones that will channel the application and what they have observed from the interview to the court. And sometimes, as a matter of practice, it will be required that the adoptive parent and the biological parent will consent. That is where they are known. Of course, where they are known, we consent. There's usually what we call letter of consent, whereby you have consented that, okay, you consent that your child be adopted. In the process of the interview at the ministry, of course, you submit so many things. Your medical status, they will have so many questions. They want to know if you're medically fit to parent the child. They want to know so many things. They will supply your biodata. You fill so many forms just in a bit to know who you are, to know if you're capable of adopting the child. Now, upon application to court, it will be tabled for hearing, on which that day you'll come, adoptive parent will be present, the child will be present. You state what you want to court. The court will pose their questions to you, and the court, of course, will know if they should grant the application or not. Now, Assuming court grants the application, the court, before the application is granted, the court will direct that the welfare officers investigate you. That is where they will investigate your address, the information you supply. They are going to investigate if they are of the truth or not. We are in a country or in the world where a lot of scamming go on. So they want to be sure if those documents you supplied are correct, if the information you supplied are correct, if you have the means to take care of the child, if you are older than the child, the age requirement is there, the residency requirement is there, and all other requirements of the law, if they are present before they go ahead. So when the court directs the investigation by the state government welfare agency, the agency will supply their recommendations, their findings from whatever they have gone, the investigation they've done. They will supply their findings to the court. That will help the court to make an informed judgment, informed decision, and so that it will not be a problem in the future. So when they submit their recommendations to the court, the social welfare officer will visit the home of the adoptive parent, and until the officer is satisfied that the child is well settled, the prospective adoptive parents can look after him or her, then the social welfare officer will submit, like I said, the positive recommendation in writing to the court. Now, the next thing will be the court order. The court will meet the adoptive parents, like I said, to confirm their suitability, and the court will issue or deny the adoption order. The court is not obligated to grant that order. The court can deny. The court has the right to deny in the case where the court is not satisfied that they should make the adoption process pull through. But where the court is satisfied, the court can grant the adoption order. And by that order, it definitely means that you can go ahead to make the final documentations, and the child eventually becomes your child. The court shall, in reaching a decision relating to the adoption of a child, have regard to all circumstances. They first consider the consideration will be given first to the need to safeguard and to promote the welfare of the child, the best interest of that child throughout the child's childhood. And of course, when they see that the child's interest is going to be, protected, they can go ahead to granting that decision. The last stage will now be the final documentation as to how to you probably now know that this child is yours. After the court order, the court has ordered it in court. The next thing is to get the court order printed out in writing in the hand of the judge who granted that order. The judge will sign it, of course. And after the adoption order has been issued, adoptive parents now cannot obtain a new birth certificate for the child, listing them as the child's parents. In some states, after the adoption has been granted, the adoptive parent must obtain the court's permission to remove the child from Nigerian jurisdiction. If you want to take the child out of Nigeria now, you must expressly obtain court's permission to do that. So that these measures are in place to avoid human trafficking. Some people will come under the disguise of, okay, we are adopting the child, take the child abroad and, use them for despicable things. So if you want to take the child out of the country, you must obtain the court permission to take the child out of this Nigerian jurisdiction, either temporarily or permanently. So in addition, the social welfare officer too might be required to submit a letter to the Nigerian Immigration Office stating that the adoptive parents are now the legal parents of the child. This letter will permit the adoptive parent to apply for a passport to take the child out of Nigeria. And of course, every other action that occurred in an adoption proceeding and its final outcome must be entered into the adoption register. There's what we call the adoption register, where the proceedings, all the actions on that adoption process will be recorded, and a certified copy of an entry in the adopted children's register will be stamped and sealed by the registrar, the registrar's office, and shall be the proof that the adoption of a child took place. So you're going to state it, they're going to state all the processes that occurred, and they're going to state it that child is an adopted child. So there's what we call the adoption register, where all the proceedings, all the actions taken on that child will be stated therein. And That is, after the court order has been granted, like I said, you do the final documentation, and after that, the child, of course, is your child legally. Now, the child can no longer be say, that is my mom, that is my dad biologically. All their rights, their obligations, everything on the child ends, and now the adoptive parent assumes that responsibility. They assume that right. In fact, the child begins to bear their name. They can issue new birth certificates in the child's name and stating that they are the legal parent of the child. Like I said earlier, adoption is different from guardianship. In guardianship, you can still continue to be biological parents, but another person will be the legal guardian of your child. But here in adoption, is as good as the adoptive parent are the biological parent after the court order has been granted. Now, there are a lot of challenges that is attached to adoption. We all know that. There's nothing in this life that we have is pros and we have its cons, and that is to say that it also has its disadvantages, and it ranges from concerns about child trafficking, like I said earlier. So people will adopt a child, take such child outside of the country, and use the child for despicable things, ranging from sexual slavery to servitude to trafficking generally. So it's a concern, and that is why the court is usually careful, and they ensure that they go through the normal processes, ensure that the state welfare agency and their officers do their due diligence, investigate before an adoption order is granted. Another challenge of child adoption is lack of comprehensive legal framework. Sometimes after adoption order has been granted, and of course the child already becomes the child of the adoptive parent, there is no follow-up sometimes, and so you don't even know a child that is suffering, a child that is not well taken care of. You don't know what comes after the post-adoption process. You don't know. There's no follow-up. Sometimes it could be a problem. Insufficient training of our officials. Some officials don't even know what to investigate, and it's a problem, and they're going to write recommendations that probably is not based on well-informed observations, and it could be a problem. We also have financial constraints, where some parents who want to adopt might not have the means to go through the financial aspect or financial requirements of adoption. Of course, adoption is not free. You will engage lawyers that will work for you. Lawyers will take their fee. Lawyers will not work for free. You're going to file in court. It has also some financial commitment that comes with it. So it's also a challenge. We also have interstate adoption challenges. It could be a problem. If you're not resident in a state and you want to adopt a child, there could be some challenges, since we don't have a uniform law that guides adoption of children in all the states of Nigeria. Also, we have limited access to adoption services. Some people are not even aware that they can adopt freely like that. Some just hear it and they think, do we do it in Nigeria? Do they do it in Kwara State? We know adoption. Do you know what adoption means? But we don't even know if it happens in Kwara State, if it can be done. We don't know who to go to. We don't know the ministry to go to. We don't know who can be adopted. And that is part of the purpose of this program. We're bringing it live to you, that you can adopt even here in Kwara State. And of course, some of the challenges can also be, like I said earlier, corruption and fraudulent practices. There are a lot of challenges attached to adoption, but if you know your mind is clear, you have a good motive, you want to probably give back to the society or humanity by adopting a child, or you are not yet, you don't have a child yet of your own, and of course you want to be a parent, you can consider adoption. It's an honorable thing to say, like I said. And now, how do we overcome all these challenges that I've said? We can overcome it by creating advocacy and awareness to dispel myths and cultural beliefs. We have a lot of people that will tell you they don't adopt children in their family. No, we don't have bastard children. There's no bastard anywhere. Every child has a parent. So we should dispel all these myths and cultural beliefs where people think, We cannot have a child of another background, of another, in our family. Some will even tell you, you don't know the sickness they have in their background. Some will tell you probably they have mental disorder issues in their family. You don't know. How will you just bring a child you know nothing about into your family? We need to dispel all these myths and cultural beliefs, and we should know that is an honorable thing. Like I said, adoption is not something we should be discouraging. We should encourage it. Also, we should bring about legal guidance and compliance from experts, officials that will be involved in investigating and recommending to the courts should be trained. They should be properly trained to know how to go about investigating these things. And I think I'm going to recommend again that we should have unification of adoption laws to have a straightforward process in all the states of Nigeria. It could be a way of combating these challenges, where we have an adoption law that is applicable to Kwara State, to Lagos, to Oyo State, Osun State, and a host of it. It's going to be a kind of breakthrough. It's going to have a straightforward process and no issues, no hassles as to interstate adoption. Also, we can have cultural sensitivity and integration of adopted child to give identity and belonging. Like I said earlier, we should not be talking about, this child is not from our background, it's not from our family, and then you now begin to discourage people that want to do that. Or in case you see someone who does that, you begin to make them have this feeling of, this child is not mine, so I shouldn't treat the child with the care and love that I should my biological child. That's going to be a very terrible thing to do. Then, like I said, generally having a uniform law will go a long way to help us to combat issues associated with adoption in Nigeria. So, like I said earlier, adoption is something we should look into. We shouldn't discourage people. If you are yet to have a child of your own, by the grace of God, God will make you smile by giving your own child. But we should know that adoption is not something to run away from. It should be encouraged in our society. It should be encouraged in our families. If you have a child of your own, you can even consider adoption too, by giving back to humanity. There are children out there that need care, that need love, that need proper upbringing. There are so many children languishing in, suffering. There are children that don't even know their parents, that you can take in, shelter them, clothe them, feed them, and in turn, God will definitely bless you. So adoption should be encouraged. Adoption should be talked about. Awareness should be given. Advocacy for it should be rampant. We should talk about it the more. And if you want to know more about it, you can go on to any legal practitioner that you know that can enlighten you on it. You can walk up to the Ministry of Social Development here in Kwara State. They will enlighten you on how you can go about it. You should know that you can adopt any child as a married couple, any child at all, whether female, whether male, any child of any age, so long as the person is still a child. Of course, any child, so long as the child is still a child and yet to be an adult, you can adopt. But if you are single and you want to adopt, you can too, but you can only adopt a child of your sex, the same sex as you, and you can only adopt a child that you are at least 21 years older than. Before you can think of adopting at all as a single person, you must have attained the age of 25 years and above. And so those are just the basic things you need to know about child adoption. Until next week, when we'll be back to give you another interesting story, an interesting topic. We want you to know that Legal Clues is here for you to give you tips to be informed on living a crime-free life. And as a matter of advice, please run away from crime. You can't do the time, so don't do the crime. Run away from crime, be law-abiding, and know that God got your back. Until next week, stay back and be blessed. God bless you all.